Hey, welcome to another tutorial from Photoshop is Fun. Let me first just start off by apologizing for the fact that I've taken a bit of a hiatus recently from doing these lessons. And the reason for that is I've been really busy at work, as well as I have a side project going on right now. And the combination of those things has really taken up a lot of my extra time, so I haven't been able to do so many of these. All of that said, I'm back in the saddle now, and I expect to be back to a regular weekly cadence and cranking out at least one of these lessons each week for you. So if you have friends or family who are either interested in learning about Photoshop or they already have Photoshop experience and want to just expand their skill set and learn new professional techniques, then make sure and point them to the channel, have them subscribe like you have, and we will just keep knocking these things out on a weekly basis. Okay, so let's jump straight into this. So today we're going to be talking about body shaping or body sculpting within Photoshop. Now, I can't help you lose weight in real life, but I can within Photoshop. So maybe you're like me and you have you have some clientele who, it's the summer months and they're doing beach shots or swimwear, things like that. And, having the right body type or a particular body type is very important for the project. Or maybe you're just someone who wants to, work with their own, you want to update your Facebook profile picture and make it a little sexier, maybe drop 10 pounds or whatever the case may be, whatever the application. We're going to go through some techniques that'll help you do professional work in shaping or sculpting a subject's body. So that said, let's jump straight into this with Emma. And Emma's the model who we'll be working with today. And when I first saw Emma, I saw the eyes and the youth and the skin, etc. And you realize right away that, from a photographer standpoint, you're working with good materials. And that's fantastic because what it usually means is, at least generally speaking, that you'll have to do less work in Photoshop to get the desired result in the end. And that's always a good thing. However, once Emma got into the bikini and you kind of get a fuller picture, I quickly realized that she wasn't at the ideal body weight for her age and for her body type. So she still requires a little bit of work within Photoshop. You can see she's got a muffin top here, and if you zoom in on her right leg, our left, she's got some varicose veins here. And then also there's this really odd reflection that is being cast onto her skin from the water that kind of is distracting to the eye. So we want to smooth that out a little bit. And we'll talk about all of these things and how to deal with these using professional techniques. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and duplicate the background layer. And that way I have the original, and I'll go back and reference that as I go along. And I want to elongate, the next thing I want to do is elongate Emma's lower half. So I select the marquee tool, the rectangle marquee tool, and I go ahead and just under her upper bikini line, I'm going to go down just a little bit, I am going to elongate this. So I've selected it all, and then I'm going to hit Command T or Control T, which will throw this marquee into free transform mode. And you can see the anchor points on the corners and in the center of the rectangle. And I'm going to grab the center anchor point here, and I'm going to drag it down about 10 to 15%, probably about 10 on this particular image. And then I'm going to go ahead and double click in there to unselect it. And you can see the difference by turning off that layer and looking at the original. It's very subtle right now, but in the final product it'll be a lot more dramatic and it'll really add to the end result. Okay, so I'm going to turn that back on, and now I'm going to duplicate that layer so that I can work on the next technique. And now what I want to do on this upper layer is I want to go into filter, and I want to go down, and I want to basically select the liquify tool, which is right there. And this throws me into a new environment. And depending on whether or not you've been in the liquify environment before, you may notice that advanced mode is either checked or unchecked. Now, with it unchecked, you get a subset, a limited set of tools. And quite frankly, this is what most either non-professional or the folks who just use liquify tool kind of at the cursory level, this is all they need, because they don't, they generally just use a particular brush size and then the warp tool, the forward warp tool. And they don't really use a lot of the other tools, so they don't need the advanced mode. I'm not going to go into all of the different tools within Liquify because it would take quite a while, but we do need advanced mode on to do what we're going to do today. So turn it on, and the next thing you want to do is you want to click the Freeze Mask tool, and then zoom into the area that you want to work with. And what the Freeze Mask tool does is you paint over the areas that you don't want Photoshop to manipulate. So all the pixel data that you don't want Photoshop to touch when you're applying these techniques, you go ahead and just paint them with this Freeze Mask tool, and it'll color everything red. And so I don't want to touch her upper bikini area yet, and I don't want her arms to be manipulated at all. So I'm going to go ahead and paint over those. And you want to make sure and get everything, because if you don't, you'll be surprised at how the tools that we'll be using will grab those areas and start to do things with them. And I'm going to also go over a belly button, because you don't want to mess up a belly button. It could be trouble. It's bad news when you do that. So, and then lastly, where the waterline meets her thigh, I'm going to go ahead and mask that out and tell Photoshop not to touch that. Okay, so now I have the general outline of what I want to mask, and I'm ready to go ahead and do some body sculpting with the Liquify tool. Now, very often I'll use the pucker tool or the bloat tool, which are these two right here, especially for this type of image. But I'm not going to here because they're a little bit more advanced, and I want to just get the basics down for this particular lesson. So instead, I'm going to use just the forward warp tool. And the next thing I want to point out is that the larger the brush, the better when you're body sculpting. And the reason being is when you use a smaller brush, so let me zoom in here. Oops, that's a little far. Your strokes are a lot more dramatic. So if I were to come down like this, for example, and start to move things, you can see, I'm going to end up on, photoshopfail.com because it's really obvious that that you've manipulated that pixel data. So I'm going to go ahead and back that up to its original state. And when you use larger strokes, it's a lot smoother and a lot less noticeable. So I'm going to use a brush size about this size, and that's the other reason why we mask things off with the Freeze Mask tool and tell Photoshop not to touch this stuff, because we're using a larger tool and we're definitely going to brush over these areas, and we don't want it to manipulate those areas. So what I'm going to do is with small strokes just gently start to push in the areas that I want to sculpt. And it's better to do a little bit at a time, and be patient with it, so that you can get kind of the curves that you want, etc. And I generally like a curvy model, so I'll bring in this area of the abdomen and then leave some hips, and that's what I'm going to do with Emma. And you can see as I go through and do that, and as I get to bigger areas here, I'm going to start to increase my brush size as well. And I'm just going to go through here. So you get the idea of what's happening here. And then I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to do a little bit of the legs. And I'm not going to do a commercial ready version, because I just want to show you the technique without taking up any more time than necessary. But you can see what's happening here. So I'm doing the thighs. Again, I have the opportunity to use a pretty large brush here. So I'm going to, again, small strokes. And trust me on that, a little at a time will give you, a better result in the end. Okay, now I'm just going to speed this up here and do the other side real quick, but you get the idea on how this works, and then I'll come back and we'll start working on the next part. Okay, so you can see that I've kind of gone through and I've made some adjustments. I've probably taken off about 10 or 15 pounds, and she's starting to look really good and a little bit more ideal and fit. So I'm going to go ahead and next I'm going to get rid of my freeze mask, and I'm going to do that by clicking on the thaw mask tool, which basically will allow me to undo the freeze mask. And I'm just going to paint over those areas. And in particular, what I'm going to work on next is her bust. She's not a busty girl, so we're going to create an illusion that she has a little bit more chest than she actually does. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to use the warp tool to go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to push downward in the center of her upper bikini, and that'll create the illusion that she has more shape there. And again, I'm going to use a little bit larger brush size. Okay, whoops. Let's try that one again. And next, what I want to do is use the bloat tool, which is this one right here. And I want to use a brush size that is about the size, a little bit larger than her actual, breast would be. And then I just basically want to tap just a little bit, just to create, a little bit of, bust or cleavage in that area. So something like that. And again, take it to whatever extreme or subtlety that you desire for your photograph. Then I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to zoom in here to kind of show you the difference in where we're at right now. So I'm going to undo this, or I'm going to hide this middle layer so that I have the current layer we've been working with and the original. And I'm going to turn off the current layer to show you the difference. So there's quite a dramatic difference. Yeah, I'd actually say that I probably took off about 20 pounds. And she looks a lot more fit and a lot more ready for print work.